Greetings, everybody. Greetings. Welcome back. Welcome back to Mad Poet Podcast. It's alive. Not so much night, but we're on our way. We're on our way. As the ambulance would say, we're on our way. But good to be here and so much to share, so much to discuss. I was looking forward to this, man. I was like, man, I'm in a mood to talk tonight. You know,
Yeah,
let's
let's
do
get it,
what
bro.
we do. Yeah, man. And despite the fact that I've been up since about 6:30 or something, I've been busy out there. But either way, as the French would say, hello.
Ah,
Let's get it. um, I'm sure you saw the title.
yes.
Yes. Man, I just there's so many things been going through. Hopefully, I can remember everything that was going through my mind
Hmm.
at the time. But of course, we had this discussion previously to do with, are we, well, I didn't want to reiterate it, it's out there. But ultimately, where I'm going with this now is I had this thought, man, are we, I guess maybe I put it I'm sure the title's there, but I wanna just give you a question and just sort of roll it off from there. Let me just get the question. So this was the initial question that, are we, it's all to do with nature, true nature. Are we all to walk a path that reflects our true nature? Now, with that question, I suppose what I'm saying is if your true nature is destruction, then ultimately you're going to end up being a destroyer or being destroyed. That's what I mean by true nature. Ultimately, the essence of who you are or what defines you is pretty much what will end up being how you leave this earth or being the reason that of your coming, but also of your unbecoming or your unraveling. Hence, as I was saying, are we all to walk a path that reflects our true nature? But let me give you a little bit more context.
Hmm.
This is on a wider scope, and I suppose what I'm thinking is what brought this on is man, destruction. Destruction on small scales, divide, divisiveness. Um,
See the theme lately. What's going on?
um, I think find it for you. I think I should have some numbers. Um, some numbers, but I'll get there. I'll get there.
Hmm.
But I don't want to bring it yet. But there's so many examples in my head at the moment. You can go back to King Leopold, Congo. I think I don't want to misquote, but I believe it's around between 10 and 20
Yeah. 15 or 20.
million dead and a lot of amputations, of with arms and stuff like that. And I
Hmm.
think they was just storing it. Some of them was being stored. Um, Obvious, the Tash man, with what the Jewish community went through. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Biafran War.
No.
You haven't heard of the Biafran War. This is a this was in the 1960s, and once upon a time, as you know, Nigeria was colonized,
Yeah.
and once upon a time, um, so let me just keep it simple. So Nigeria was colonized by the British, and there was a process of amalgamation. And what I mean by that is sort of like, just like a pot where you just throw everything in and you just mix it up,
Mm.
whether it's supposed to be mixed together or they want to be or not. So if you're thinking about divisiveness, um, you have a bunch of people or a lot of different tribes, but not necessarily with one missing ingredient, harmony, or unity, as they say.
Mm.
So ultimately, I think that was the trigger pin that was always there, like a time bomb. And over time, it came to a point where there was a civil war, which divided Nigeria between, I believe, in the far north is where you have the houses,
Right.
and the west, but also the mixture. Primarily southeast, you have the Igbos,
Mm.
the west, um, and it's kind of like a mixture, or they're a bit more like, you know, but more dominant Yoruba is in the north as well,
Okay.
northwest. But the Igbos are pretty much like primarily southeast, but they're also, part of the northwest as well. So ultimately, this book, it was written by Frederick Forsyth.
Okay.
So this is where I really garnered a lot of information about. So ultimately, what happened was, there was a split. They're trying to separate, and this was after like a bloody murderous killings involving the military and criminals kind of thing, of like the Igbos being murdered and stuff like that. And so there was always, like I said, there was always tension. So this is just like, the powder keg that just kicked off at this time. And I'm really sort of kind of like pinpointing right now because there's so many things that happened at
Yeah,
the
man.
time. Like before, after what I'm talking about now, like I think about two coups. And what I mean coups is kind of like, it's sort of like plans where they sort of kind of like kill a lot of pivotal leaders. Um, one person that was very prominent was this guy called Ironside, or Ironside,
Mm.
and he was kind of like a commander, but he's well, you get what I mean, loved by the people as well, this that, and initially, before there was when all the official leaders got killed, he was the guy that somewhat just took over with the military and just sort of kind of evaded uh, war or civil war at the time. But obviously, this thing clearly was inevitable because it happened anyway once they eventually got murdered. But ultimately, why am I saying all this? Because in this war, the famine alone, there was blockades during the process of the war, and the famine alone caused millions of people to die. They sort of like there was a starvation process where people were starved and not fed. I'm talking about the East at this point. Primarily, it was starved. The war, that's even more of an extreme murderous killing type of thing.
Mm.
Um, why am I saying all this? Ultimately, the one thing I got from this genocide, genocide. It was that much killing where I'm looking at this and it's genocidal because, and the reason why I say this is not just the killing, is the intentional specific killing to sort of like aiming at boys, just leaving mothers and women and girls, killing sons, aiming for sons. Do you get what I mean? Like intentionally, definition of genocidal type of killing. Um, but yes, I would recommend anybody that really wants to, understand this whole thing because there's so much um,
Mm.
in this book. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's all because, like I said, it wasn't necessarily meant to be like that because they were forced together, and so things just eventually just exploded.
Right.
But at the same time, it stands to reason that there was always a divide there. There was always a conflict between, like a tribal conflict. You get me? And all these outside forces, including the British, of course, was massive part of this. But ultimately, the reason why I'm saying all of this is the end result. At the end of the day, it still reflects so much. It ranks of traits or true nature of a person or true nature of a race. Going back to what we spoke about before last week, are we are we beyond the saving? And I think
You know
about a
that's
lot of
right.
these. Sorry, and I think about a lot of these factors, right? And it just got me in a space where I'm like, man, it seems to me that we're destined to sort of enact in the end who we truly are, which is somewhat destructive, survival instinct prone. And of course, survival instinct has its positives, but at the same time, in this space that we're speaking about, survival instincts, it's to our detriment. Where like we're prone to be destroyed, and so it just got me in a space where I'm just like, man, are we beyond? You know, are we prone to live out our own um, savagery, uh, destruction? Are we prone to see our own destruction, or is this what we are at the base of everything that? And obviously, we somewhat are great, but at the end of the day, just merely savages. Do you get me? That's just in
Mm.
the end prone to destroy each other. A little bit gloom and doom, but doom and gloom. But hey, this is where I'm at with it. The floor is yours.
Um. Yes. 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 And no. All the yeses are. Um. Yeah. Like life is a cycle.
Mhm.
Uh. And because of that, if there wasn't um death, then I think we even touched on it last week as well. How you have a respect for natural disasters, due
Yeah.
to their occurrences, but they're not as equated to mankind's um, contribution to playing a part of that cycle. So um, it's the
Mm.
same way with, how many driving accidents happen, do they occur? Is that also a part of the destruction? Yes and no,
Yeah.
because I don't think no one is viciously going out their way driving into people, but the death toll in itself would represent about how, you know, for someone is born, another's gone in it. Um,
Mm.
so I think there's very different like stages of looking at, but to why you mentioned the political driven agendas, I think that is one stage, but it's not the end all be all of it. And I still stand on the fact that those decisions being made are not entirely linked to just somewhat savagery, because point blank, people look
Yeah.
at the tactics that generals have made and somewhat are admired for how they won a war. So, um, are we all savages? Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
They all equate to, the lower nature part of yourselves. And I think that is what separates us between us and animals. But the other flip side of that is when they sense danger, they have an
Mm.
innate intuition of how to react, how to fend for harsh times, um, and what to do to stay in their rhythm. The difference and the fascination with us is
Yeah.
how when your environment purposely keeps you in a state of mind to continue to think of the line of survival, that is the biggest equation that people leave out. Because unless it's, and on all, yeah, in fact, in all grounds, because for what war leaves behind is the
Mm.
massive amounts of um, like naturally embedded, um, what I say, traditional PTSD that gets passed down onto
Yeah.
those who are a direct conflict of that. So even those who are not in it, they have been conditioned to react to things that have transitioned for the state of where life is right now. So, um, and I'm even glad that you brought up um, a African country, so to speak, more on like Black people and PTSD. Um, that
Mm.
all the way comes down to say if your parent or you now as the adult have absorbed some of the things that your parents have um,
Yeah.
been privy to help them, not get into certain situations, you will naturally pick that up and it will affect your way of life as well. But I feel every generation has a line where they are able to help themselves to seek things about themselves to determine whether what choices they can make despite having those same conditions passed down onto them. Um, Even going a bit further, if you look at just a few generations as well, if it comes down to personality traits, um,
Yeah.
anger issues, some people debate whether that's just derived from childhood. To a degree, yes, but um, I even saw this quote earlier, or the statement, the sins of the father.
Mm.
If um, your parent or caregiver um, is essentially destined to raise you up in this life, if they have certain traits that you pick up on and you see as normal, you will then get to a point in the road where you then say, okay, um, can I continue on this path, or do I just see it as normal until reality knocks me over the head multiple
Mm,
times to
yeah.
repeat these same inhibitions, but in a different timeline, so to speak? So that's why I just go back to saying that until you look at destruction at a much wider lens, then it can help you look at it from bird's eye view, which gives me a lot of clarity on situations to ultimately determine how I move, carry myself, and think when these
Mm,
different topics come up, or when I'm faced with new facts and realizations, to then
yeah.
say, okay, how do we pivot? How do we not stay locked into one of those, I would say, demographics or labels of destruction, to then say, oh, this is the only one that matters? And I'm like, well, you're missing the cycle part of everything that exists, if do you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
bit long-winded, but that's where I'm at with it.
No, no, no. I get it. I get it. Just to give a bit more context, just to because as much as I'm sharing where people should go check this out,
Mm,
well, a lot of people probably will. So I just want to share context on the reason behind the war itself, why that
mm,
started. I mentioned the coup. So after a coup or coup, you know,
mm,
um, after as I mentioned, Ironsy died. He was the last rightful guy that can lead Nigeria in terms of like avoiding war. Um, there was mass killings of able people, and so they sort of wanted they had enough sort of thing.
mm.
It's not the first time, so they wanted to separate, wanted to break Nigeria in two pieces, like two parts.
Right.
Their part, which is like the southwest, southeast, sorry, and you know they would lead the rest to the north, kind of thing, for the most part. But um, the leader at the time never wanted them to go, and for a lot of reasons, but one of the primary reasons was they had mass oil on that side in the east, and well, the EP, all of them was over there. But anyways, a lot more reasons, of course, but
Mm.
didn't want to
Hard to
separate.
ignore that one.
Correct. So there was, treaties and agreements being brought up to sort of kind of just solidify and just we don't want anything to do with you because you don't like us, you hate us.
Mm,
He says, but it wasn't meant to be, and he had other ideas in terms of like just breaking up the country into, but keeping it together ultimately. And also the British wanted Nigeria to stay because that's ultimately to their advantage. In the end, they never had an agreement, so war was the only outcome. Unfortunately, the British shared that they were neutral, but in the end, they found out that technically they weren't, and there's mass amounts of supplies being shipped all the time to to support the northern side, which was the Uber driven side,
hmm
sort of kind of like the old leader. And also, the name of the book, The Biafra Story, was because the other side, where the Igbos were, they were going to call that part of the country Biafra.
Right.
Yeah. So Nigeria was still Nigeria up north, west, etc. But down southeast was going to be called Biafra. hence the name. And for a while, I'd say for a year or so, because this is over years, I think about around 2 years, between 67, maybe just before 69. Like I said, I'm just sort of kind of just skimming a few things, just
Mm.
kind of give a little bit of context so people understand. But I would recommend you go read it for yourself or research this. Um, but yes, around that time. So, but ultimately, as I said, with them being constantly supplied and not and being while the British is warning other superpowers to stay out of it. Um, they ran out of ammunitions by around, I think, late to like around 1969, because between 67 and 69. And ultimately, they couldn't continue. Do you get what I mean? And so
Mm.
um, eventually, they couldn't support the war. But man, when they did it, man. And don't get me wrong, this is the other thing I realized as well. There were so many forces involved in terms of like, I'm just talking about mercenaries itself
Mm.
to kind of like support the southeast, the Biafras, to sort of just being human,
Right.
and just wanting them to kind of survive and live, and just sort of an affinity towards their plight and starving, the suffering, and just the genocidal situations being forced down their throat, kind of thing. So yeah, yeah, man, it was dark. It was dark, man. It was, I think I ain't gonna lie to you. You need to this one is very relevant because it's so close to home, and I would
Mm.
recommend you go check it out as well.
Yeah, I'll get the title at the end, bro.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, the only reason why the reason why that got me close to this, I was doing research for a story, right?
Yeah, no,
So that's what got me
that's
into
usually how
there.
it
Do you get what
goes.
I mean?
That's usually how it goes.
I'm always doing research because
Mm.
I write stories, so I have to know what I'm talking about. So that's how I ended up there. But
Mm.
man, and there's another one I'm looking to go read following after everything. But um, there's a lot of history there, man. A lot of history that I think being who we are is just it's just responsibility to just at least find out some of this stuff because some of your ancestors might be from there if you're not, you
Mm.
know, if you're not if you're from the Caribbean or wherever, or if
Mm.
you're definitely from Nigeria, then really truly you should be, finding out. Um, but yes,
Mm.
um, I think there was a saying I was thinking about to what you were talking about. Yes, fighters fight, runners run. I only say that because at the end of the day, it seems to me that we always somewhat come back to the same home, which is survival instincts. To live is so fickle, but to survive, the idea of being a survival or survival instinct itself is it covers such a broad scope of life itself that I think sometimes it's such a fine line. And a lot of times when people think they're living, no, you're not. You're surviving. And the reason why I'm highlighting this such because there's such a thin line sometimes that when we think, oh man, well, we're going to destroy somebody, we're probably going to end up destroying ourselves more likely than not, as opposed to this person. Not only that, and the reason why is because there's a certain sacrifice that comes with anything you do to get things done. The only caveat is that you risk sacrificing yourself. What I mean by that is, yes, you might just get it right, and you end up vanquishing this person that you think, or this group that you think is doing you wrong. But at the same time, you might just end up doing it to yourself also, or either or sort of thing. And this is where I keep ending up. It just got me in a situation where I'm trying to. It's kind of like a quagmire a little
Why
bit.
is that though?
I'm gonna have to, yeah. You ask why is that?
Yeah, like for you specifically, why do you? I feel like um, help me elaborate if I'm near the mark or not. But that's why I said it earlier. I feel it's
Mm,
interesting seeing the information come to you and your thoughts protruding around destruction as of late. So I've there's definitely a theme there. Um,
yeah.
but for you to keep coming back to it, obviously, when you're in something, the objective of
Mm,
someone, especially
yeah.
those who seek information, is to see their way out of it. So
Correct.
I'd ask, why? What do you think you're trying to see? Have you asked yourself that?
I tell you why I keep bordering around this doom and gloom conclusion is because it takes so much for us to say, "Oh man, we're not
I saw
divided."
you.
To oppose being divisive and or divided. I think it takes so much to be on the other side of that, where we all sort of like work together, if not all together, but enough for. I'm talking like thousands of years to say that, man, what are odds are we not seeing another world war? I mean, you see how much war, see how many things is going on right now.
Hmm.
And I think war itself is so fickle that these things can, they're driving force for so much potential destruction. And it only takes one. Let's be real. It's like a bullet, right? It only takes one. And the it's like a domino effect. Yeah, you might shoot one person, but look how many family members you're getting. And look how many people are somewhat going to revert back to their basic instincts to make themselves feel better, make their family feel better, to balance the scales. But let's be real, we're only somewhat distorting the scales even further. Do you get what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's so real. And at the end of the day, I guess what I'm saying is, it's really true what they say. You an eye for an eye just leaves everybody blind.
So do you, with that, with where you are exploring this
Mm,
within yourself, and you know, thousands of how long this is, like I've said before, war's part of the cycle of life.
correct.
Unfortunate as it is. Um, so with the eye for an eye, do you see yourself alluding to the conclusion of what if eyes were never taken, but yet those matters still exist, where harm has been done or some disagreement has been caused, and the rage that comes with these decisions that have been taken for whatever reason. Uh,
Yeah.
are you trying to like swim through different possibilities if one aspect wasn't there, or you're just in the awe of how thin these lines are?
I suppose I'm more thinking about what's the most likeliest outcome or the most likeliest of
Ah, okay.
do you get what I mean? Where I'm not trying to be necessarily hopeful. I'm just
Okay.
seeing, it's kind of like you put a person in a situation
Mm,
where it's life or death, but they have to do this one thing. What do you think they're gonna do?
a million things.
Again, yes, yes. Like for example, you put a person in the desert, right? You give them a bottle of water. You say, "Don't drink it till you
Mm,
reach such and such and such," or "Don't drink it and just cross." Like, not obviously for obviously a right type
mm.
of incentive, or like, "Don't drink it, or as I'm gonna kill somebody." Like, what do you think they're gonna do? But you have to take this bottle of water across the desert. But I'm watching you. Don't drink it, or I'm
Who's
gonna get
who's watching?
like like somebody is watching you.
Who?
Like this is a hostage situation. Do you get me? And like somebody's watching and said,
I'm
"You better
glad.
take this."
I'm glad you've used that demonstration. So let's go down. Let's take that route just a bit. Who? Who's watching?
Whoever the napper is, that's got a family member of yours.
No, with the desert. All
You know
right,
what I mean?
because with desert situation, I'm seeing
Mm,
you highlight the survival instinct, so to speak. Um, whereas family, we can use to what happens every day in the ends. Someone doesn't find out that they're related to a family member until they've been, you know, tragically murdered, um,
yeah,
because of the situations that keep us all in a survival state of mind in these environments.
yeah,
Um, that's why I mentioned earlier, like destruction has so many facets and it's really endless. And I think that
mm,
is like me asking you, or
yeah.
anyone, like, what is life? Every person is going to give me a different answer, and I think
Correct.
that's what makes it. Um, that's what helps me sleep,
Yeah,
and why I love that Thanos quote that he gives to Tony, that you are cursed with knowledge,
knowledge.
and I refute. Once you let go of those shackles, I'm start to then say, all right, how do I start to apply the knowledge that finds me or that I find in every instance? Otherwise, I'll be kept in a time loop trying to look at every single scenario. And with doing that, I tend to freeze and stay in these warps, so to speak. But uh, yeah, no, I get it. I think I just wanted some more clarity, because I'm always fascinated when someone is in a subject matter and they're like just looking around, and because I don't know where you're at, so it's insightful to see what it is that you're seeing as well with that,
Mm,
because it's a massive topic, and when you throw in these reality altering situations that have happened, um,
yeah,
it really does um, beg the question of what would have happened differently. So when you mention things like scales, scales
yeah,
are things that I'm glad they're beyond human comprehension. Because boy,
mm,
uh, yeah, it explains in itself. Even if you try to alter that yourself, there's something
mm,
that you're unaware of that you would do. So That's why I get when people say it's already written, and then some people are like, "Well, is it really?" And I'm like, "Well, it's good to beg to differ because one
Mm,
thing every human can accept for a fact that it's gonna happen whether you like it or not."
I'm glad you said that. All right, I'll tell you where I'm at.
Mm,
Now, this the I see the reality, right? And I see things in my head, and I suppose what I'm thinking is, oh man, on the way to the end product, which is perhaps destruction. I don't want to, to be too final on that one.
mm-hmm.
But in between, in between that and the end, I use the Biafra story as an example. Man, I
Yeah.
see hope. I see humanity where it's triumphs of like traits, positive traits of humanity in there,
Mm,
where it it goes beyond it goes beyond race, where everybody wants to do right. Everybody wants to they're finding ways like risking lives. A lot of people died. And I'm not talking about just in Nigeria or Biafra. I'm
mm,
talking about people from the outside trying to even protest, from people from here, from the US, despite, politically it's like them mans don't really care kind of thing. It's like people itself, they show so much attrition, man, and it's great. You get what I mean?
mm.
But but in the end, the facts are what they are. If the situation is overwhelming, in the end, it's sort of like you're delaying the inevitable.
Mm,
You get
absolutely.
what I mean? And sometimes it seems to me like hope and get along to go along and just live, etc., etc. Is sort of like what do you call it? Well, you could call it hope because hope is,
Yeah, for the sake
but
of the
also
conversation.
it's like a holiday period. It's a grace period. It's a procrastination period of bliss.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
But it's also ignorance. In the end, it's like I knew this was gonna happen. What was I kidding myself, kind of thing. And you
Mm,
want it to be different. You want it to be more. You want it to be a bit more like, oh man, how they do in the movies, fairy tale ending. But it's just not the case. Just not the case. It's like reality, but also logic because you knew more times than not this was going to be the outcome,
mm.
despite you kidding yourself. It's always been that. Global
With
Woman comes to mind. It reminds me of that as well. Carry on, sorry.
what women?
Global Woman.
Okay. Oh, that one. I'm gonna leave that one. Uh, but yeah, the whole thing. Um, what you said is interesting. I think with that, where would humanity be if we didn't have that as well? Um,
Mm,
would be morbid, and even to keep it in the where the book stems from, the topic itself. Hope encouraged people to fight. They said, you know what, I can stand here
mm,
um, and you know articulate how wrong this feels, but your quote, runners run and fighters fight. Some runners probably said,
mm,
enough is enough, I can't run. And the climate, the conditions, the time that they're in supports them to pick up arms and fight. Um, and I will always go back to how interesting we are as a race or species is because um, the train of thought when it comes to something being taken from you, if it's done out of a sense
Yeah.
of injustice, which is i.e., if something is given to you on such land and people say, "Hey, that's mine," and you're like,
Mm,
but this is God given and it
yeah.
blesses an entire race of people. It's how we are able to give thanks to forces that we don't or do understand, which supplies um, resources to enable a society or community. Um, that's why I think comparing that to now, um, depending on
Yeah.
where we have a different fight. We have
Yeah.
our voices that travel further than they did a long time ago to be able to delay just a bit longer um, some instances if it does get to war, um, which is still unfortunate. But again, like that, when I see it from that angle, it does says to me that people picking up devices or starting rallies or whatever it is that inspires people, that part of nature to
Mm,
say, look, I have to go out there and do what I can, but also be mindful of what I have. Uh, because logic comes into play where it says, all right, you go out and give everything away. What do you go home to? Do you know what I mean? Whereas
yeah.
back then, it's like you have a lot more people coming together and saying, look, we will have nothing to go back to if we don't fight. So I think it equally balances itself out in one way another. So when we read
Mm,
about what's already happened, um, my mentor always says, the winners rewrite history.
correct.
So with those who, um, when there's new light shed upon a situation or a part of time that it feels more truthful as to what happened, that then shifts your
Mm,
perspective about how you will see destruction and um, terms and conditions that humans had to subject themselves to. Because one piece of information would be like, oh, if I was in that same scenario at those times, I would have adapted myself differently um, because of that new information, so to speak. So, hope is an instinct,
You know what
as
comes to
well, I
mind?
believe.
You know what comes to mind with what you just said?
Mm.
Survival of the fittest. I mean, you can be the
Yeah,
strongest,
yeah. If
but
we
it just
don't, yeah,
means you're the fittest. Do you get what I mean?
yeah, definitely. It's just
Um,
unfortunately, it's how it is. People want to
yeah.
sugarcoat it, but you
And
know,
ultimately, what I'm saying is when you think about survival of the fittest, it's kind of like me saying, "Oh, I'm a runner. Yes, I can afford to run because I can survive because I'm the fittest. So that means if I choose to fight, then I'll most likely survive that too
mm,
because I'm still the fittest, whether I want to run or I want to fight. Um, whether you're in the Stone Age or you're in this this place we're in right now, where like the power force that you're gonna face as a human is another group of humans with as much firepower as you do. But again, it's like who's got the strongest, who's the fittest, who's the strongest, who can endure more, who's got the most resources. It's still survival of the fittest. I guess the point I'm making is at the end of the day, right? We can sugarcoat all this that we want, but at the end of the day, it seems to me that we're still by our basic instincts, and um, when we sense the worst is around the corner, we always revert backwards. We always revert back to who we truly were at the beginning. Even back in Stone Age, where it's stones, it's a piece of wood, it's whatever
Yeah,
it is to get that dinosaur off
you
mom's,
say
right? Like,
that, you say
you know what I
that,
mean?
but what I said earlier about different races were in the same scenarios that did things differently.
Mm,
Even if some of us were in the Stone Age, we had fire way before they put it in those books, and that has a massive amount on how that changes my perspective. So that's why I'm able to say, and I get what you're saying. I completely agree
mm,
about reverting to who you are, but it would be catastrophic if humanity just stayed there. Because Stone Age just meant they didn't have factories, but they were still able to figure out how to survive. There's a blueprint, and that came from somewhere.
mm.
Um, Not some man rubbing two sticks and saying, "Oh, look," like, bro, come
Yeah,
on, man, like that. That's played out. Um, Honestly speaking, but at the same time, um, there comes an admiration for learning how to use that instinct. Your
correct, correct.
analogy of an athlete, like he will study a playbook a million times, but some of his best
Mm,
performances is when he learns how to use those instincts to, and then when you ask him, he says, "Brother, I have no formal way of explaining this to you. This is God given."
mm.
So that aspect um, should never be left out of the equation, because it feels um, a huge portion of how things play out as well, even how tragic they can be. Um, but the goalposts can move depending on different conversations, and it's not easy to talk about some of them either, because if someone you're having a conversation with for the sake of trying to find light in that conversation, but if
Yeah,
they keep saying, "Oh, but they did this," they keep badgering all the injustices, then it's like, well, what's the point of having a conversation if you're having, if all this you're saying is rooted in anger? It's like, well, I'm not going to be made guilty just because someone keep throwing things in my face that they refuse to see a different perspective on,
yeah.
despite how tragic the conversation is. So, but I do somewhat have kind of a question, and that's
Mm.
why the conversation we had last week was very interesting, because the film I watched, yeah, you know me, but and I'm going to do a video on it, mind you, but it's so fascinating how he was able to do this, and I'll be mindful of time as well. I don't know if you are aware of the film Oppenheimer.
Yes, I haven't seen it though. I haven't seen it, but I am aware.
Fantastic watch. And uh, long story short, it's a dramatic release of the scientists that created the bomb, and it's
Oh,
taken, right. It's taken from a book that I think he had a hand in creating about his life, or two authors that were able to source the information together. But um,
yeah.
the film, and why this man is my favorite director of all time, is he spoke on the perspective of where you are with this topic,
Yeah.
and where, and please bear with me because it might not be a question, but it was, I'm still, it triggered a lot of um, interesting concepts, but the one that came up the most was savior complex. Um, so
Mm,
the man has this hunger to create something that was never brought into existence. And
yeah.
along the journey, he is reminded by other great minds to say, look, bro, are you sure this is a part of your destiny that you need to fulfill? And his whole thing was, yes, it will help your favorite word right now, mankind, to
Yeah.
win a war. So if this brings us good, then,
So
who am I? I'm just an instrument. And they're like, well, I can't stop you because I know that same hunger and insatiable thirst that mind for knowledge has. You can't
yeah,
keep it quiet until the scales pull up and say, yo, stop right there. We need to have a serious word with you.
yeah,
Um, so he finishes it, and it's just a magnificent way of showing that even if you think you're doing something that will benefit
yeah.
mankind, as soon as you're done, they will chew your ass up and spit you out
Absolutely, man.
and take you away from there. So it made me think about your points about what would a man what's the Kanye lyric? No one man should have all that power, I believe.
Mm,
Um, but we are all capable of it, but different lives indicate whether it's that time of your life should you be responsible for something that is so groundbreaking and changes history like indefinitely. So um like I said, it's a yeah, I'm still trying to see if I can find the question, but probably it would be yeah, so in that, I wouldn't say scenario, but
I could break
um
it down for you. I got
please,
enough.
because it's, and I highly recommend to watch it as well because it speaks on it so well.
Mm. Now that you mention it, I'll definitely watch it. But with what you said, what comes to mind is the idea of go back to that saying where people are saying money is the true the root of all evil sort of thing. That
Okay.
sort of comes to mind. What I mean
Mm,
by that is the fact that do chasing money or like loving money, somewhat is going to lead to evil. But I think it's the behind chasing money or loving money is the intent that you have for money. That's what is evil. I think money is just a tool. What you
right.
use money for is what is evil. And to me personally, that's what I see with this Oppenheimer situation is not necessarily the device or the power, it's your intentions behind the power.
So he had
Because
none, just the scientific discovery.
correct. But once it's created, he has some, or he has the power to create. But ultimately, what I'm saying is, and this is the other part we can't forget. It reminds me of so many different things, but ultimately, if he doesn't, another one will. I guarantee it.
That's that, and that was mentioned.
Mm,
That was mentioned.
guarantee it. And it's probably it could possibly be a situation where like created for the wrong people in the wrong hands with
Mm.
the worst intention. Is it all comes back to intent. So ultimately, you want things to sort of, I don't want to say hope, but you always want to make sure that you control the chessboard in a sense where you don't put the wrong people in the wrong situations or people that don't know how to handle power, vast amount of power. You don't want to give them that situation because then you know what the outcome's going to be. More likely than not, they're going to destroy themselves and you with it. This is the situation, this is the game we play as human. but it's not to go backwards. You can't, you can't afford to, because we don't know what's waiting ahead in the future, where these tools that we have are somewhat gonna be to our survival,
Mm.
where we can actually see another day. It's kind of like what you're saying with the caveman back in the day with the fire. If he never had that fire, he didn't figure out a way to create fire. Who knows how many sharks or dinosaurs would have come by and just ate his ass up and his family, and there's nothing to do. On top of that, if you think about it, yes, the dinosaurs etc. was stronger, but at the end of the day, he was more fitter because he could survive the cold. At the end of the day, what you're talking about with Oppenheimer, this is add to another skill set to make us a better survivor within this situation, that this modern situation that we have here. Because at the end of the day, there are no, to me personally, I see things now. There's no such thing as good, bad, or evil. This. It's just intentions, and you just got to You just got to be the best you can be, and put the right people in the right situations that you can guarantee no hope involved,
Mm.
no hope involved, but you can guarantee people are going to make the right decisions and stick to their word. Because at the end of the day, yo, if you're hoping for somebody to just be like, oh man, you know what, I think this is right. More times than not, you're going to lose, because you need people with convictions. You need people that believe in what they're doing. It sounds to me like Oppenheimer is that type of guy. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't fan driven, it wasn't supporter driven.
Mm.
It was his purpose. He saw that. He just did it. You know,
100%.
I think that's what we're working with. It's kind of like the first person that lifted 500 kg deadlift. Until he did it, nobody else did it.
Mm.
But there was a lot of people that could do it. And once he did it, a lot of people went about lifting. I think somebody's working on, I think somebody went 501 a year later.
Wow.
Do you get what I'm saying? And now people are working on going 505 kg deadlift. So if you don't do it, somebody else will. You just got to, but at the same time, even this situation is like the guy that lifted it, the first one, the 500 kg first, good guy. Do you get what I mean? You can see, look at that, look upside in. It's like, man, if I wait anybody to lift it, I'm glad this guy lifted it,
Mm.
because there's a lot of a-holes out there. Do you get what I mean? And so with Oppenheimer, you're just happy that somebody with ethics figured this out. Think about this. Imagine if Hitler had figured it out. And if what I recall correctly, he was close, but I think some of the scientists that he had that were pivotal for him to do it were
Mm.
actually Jewish, and he got rid of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think they actually ended up helping the Allies against it. Yeah,
yeah.
do you get what I'm saying? So, man, it's just a game we play, and there is no wrong or right. It's just you either do it or you don't. It's kind of like sports to me. It's you either did it or you didn't. There are no in betweens, you know. But yeah, man, this was good, Strings. Glad you came true.
Yeah, likewise, man.
This is fun. Um,
Always is.
yeah, man. Thanks for sitting down and hearing my madness. I'm the mad poet,
Oh,
so you knew what
absolutely.
was coming.
And yeah, let me get the title of that book. do
No
some
doubt. I'll send it to you.
research. Appreciate it. Because it's,
Yeah, man.
yeah, it's like, wow, a lot of Nigerians I know, so hearing about their history is always insightful, and it's like, wow, like,
Yeah, man. It broke down a lot of history that I didn't know. You know, and it taught me a lot. And more than anything, it taught me about tribalism. As much as we're
mm,
saying, as and that's that, that's why it brought me back to how can we say we're so evolved when tribalism is such a big thing. And when I say tribalism, I'm just talking about, tribalism as it is in Africa. No, I'm talking about tribalism globally. I think we're all somewhat grouped in a tribal type of way. I think it's a human thing,
absolutely.
you know,
We're all
and
social beings.
yeah, and we identify with tribes, but we also hate because of our tribes that we identify with, because you somewhat differentiate or disassociate with somebody else to associate with something else,
Mm,
you know. So that's the game we play again. But I guess what I'm saying is the fact are, and more times than not, you can guarantee that people are going to turn out to be going out to react to their nature in the
mm,
end. Oh, before I go, I want to share this with you. I almost forgot, and it illustrates what I was trying to talk about.
right.
You probably heard it. You heard a story about the frog and the scorpion?
Uh, might ring a bell, but
Okay, I share it with you.
yeah.
So to bit the nature, right? So basically, they said the scorpion wanted to cross the river, but he can't swim. So he asked the frog to cross the river. The frog said, "Why would I do that? That would be folly. You're gonna sting me halfway through, and I'm gonna die."
Mm,
The scorpion said, "Why would I do that? That would be silly. If I sting you halfway through, we both drown. We both die." The frog said, "Yeah, you make a good point. Come on then." So halfway across the river, the scorpion stung the frog.
ah.
and, and the frog said, "Why would you do that? Now we're both gonna die." And the scorpion said, "Sorry, man, it's just my nature."
I hear it. Couldn't
you
help it.
know, couldn't help it.
That's life in a nutshell.
That's life in a nutshell. Survival instincts, right?
Mm.
Hard to deny it, man. All right, take care, everyone. Till next time.
See you later,
Going out.
guys.